The plague that broke the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their crystalline cities stretched across 17 star systems. Their technology surpassed all known civilizations, and their wisdom guided countless species toward prosperity. But wisdom meant nothing when death came knocking. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of the human research vessel Determination, watching the dying planet below. Zephyr Prime, once a jewel of blue, oceans and silver spires, now resembled a graveyard. The withering plague had claimed 90% of the population in just 6 months. "Still can't believe they called us," muttered Lieutenant Jake Morrison, adjusting his scanner. "3 weeks ago, they wouldn't even acknowledge our existence." Marcus nodded grimly. The Zephyrians had always considered humans primitive. When Earth first made contact 50 years ago, the crystalline beings had dismissed humanity as barely evolved mammals playing with fire sticks. They refused trade, denied diplomatic relations, and built energy barriers around human space to contain what they called the chaos species. Now their greatest minds were dying, and their medical technology was useless against the plague. Captain Nina Rodriguez entered the observation lounge, her face grim. "We just received another transmission from Chancellor Vex High. The death toll has reached 4 billion. Their entire medical council is dead." The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The Zephyrians, who could manipulate matter at the quantum level and travel between dimensions, couldn't cure a simple biological pathogen. Their crystalline biology, evolved over millions of years in sterile environments, had no natural immunity to disease. They had eliminated illness from their society so completely that when the plague arrived from an unknown source, their bodies simply surrendered. "What do their scans show?" Marcus asked, reviewing data on his tablet. "Same as before," Jake replied. "The pathogen bonds with their crystal matrix at the cellular level. It's like rust eating through metal, but biological. Their healing chambers just accelerate the process." Marcus walked to the viewport, staring at the planet's surface. Massive, crystalline structures lay shattered like broken glass. The Zephyrians' attempts to quarantine the disease had failed spectacularly. Their sterile perfection had become their weakness. "Sir," Jake continued, "there's something else." The Chancellor's message included something we've never heard from them before. "What's that?" he said, "please." The word hung in the air like a prayer. The proud Zephyrians, who had never asked anyone for anything, were begging the primitive humans for help. Their desperation was palpable across the void of space. Marcus turned to his team. "Prep the medical bay. We're going down there." "Marcus," Nina warned, "their planet is a biohazard zone. One mistake and we could bring this plague back to Earth." He smiled grimly. "Then we better not make any mistakes. Besides, we're humans. Making the impossible possible is what we do best." The Determination's engines roared to life, carrying humanity's hope toward a dying civilization that had never believed in second chances. Landing in hell, the shuttle Resilience descended through Zephyr Prime's atmosphere like a metal angel entering purgatory. Through the viewports, the crew could see the devastation below. Crystalline forests that once sang with harmonic frequencies now lay silent and gray. Cities that had sparkled like diamonds were covered in black veins where the plague had taken hold. "Air quality is toxic to Zephyrian life, but breathable for us," reported Dr. Emily Foster, the team's xenobiologist. "Ironic that their perfect atmosphere is killing them while we can breathe it just fine." Marcus checked his bioscanner readings. The plague appears to be airborne, but only affects crystalline-based life forms. "We should be safe with standard precautions." The shuttle touched down in what had once been the grand plaza of knowledge, the Zephyrians' greatest center of learning. Now it looked like a battlefield. Broken crystal formations jutted from the ground like gravestones. The few surviving Zephyrians moved slowly, their once bright forms dim and flickering. Chancellor. HFY approached their landing zone. The ancient Zephyrian leader, who had once stood 12 feet tall with radiant crystalline skin, now barely reached 8 feet. His light was fading, and dark veins spread across his translucent body like cracks in glass. Humans, he spoke through. A translation device, his harmonic voice weak. I never thought I would speak those words with gratitude. Marcus stepped forward, medical kit in hand. Chancellor, we're here to help. But we need to understand this plague completely. HFY gestured toward a nearby building that still functioned. Our medical archives are yours. Every scan, every failed treatment, every death we have documented. Perhaps your chaotic minds can see what our ordered thoughts cannot. Inside the medical facility, the team was amazed by the Zephyrian technology. Holographic displays showed three-dimensional models of the pathogen with detail that human science couldn't match. But for all their sophisticated equipment, the Zephyrians had approached the problem with rigid thinking. Look at this, Emily called out, studying the pathogen analysis. They've been trying to fight it like an invading army. All their treatments focus on destruction and containment. Jake reviewed the treatment logs. Quantum disruptors, cellular incineration, molecular purification. They're trying to burn it out. Marcus examined a dying Zephyrian patient nearby. The being's crystal matrix was fragmenting, but something caught his attention. In areas where the plague had been partially contained, new crystalline growth was attempting to form around the infection. They're not seeing the full picture, Marcus realized. This isn't just a disease. It's trying to integrate with their biology. Integrate? HFY asked, hope flickering in his dimming eyes. Your species evolved in perfect conditions, Marcus explained. No disease, no chaos, no adaptation pressure. But life finds a way to evolve, even in death. This plague isn't just destroying you. It's trying to become part of you. Emily's eyes widened as she understood. The pathogen is attempting symbiosis, but the Zephyrian immune systems are rejecting it violently. The rejection is what's killing them. So instead of fighting it, Jake added, we need to teach their bodies to accept it. HFY looked confused. Accept death? Marcus smiled. No, Chancellor. Accept change. Accept imperfection. Accept that sometimes the best way to win a war is to make peace with your enemy. The human team began working with renewed purpose, their chaotic creativity already forming solutions that crystalline perfection had missed. The chaos cure. The human medical team worked around the clock in the Zephyrian healing chambers. But instead of using the sterile precision the aliens preferred, they introduced controlled chaos. Marcus had ordered the environmental systems modified to include random temperature fluctuations, varying light patterns, and even playing human music through the facility. This is madness, whispered healer Zixara, one of the few surviving Zephyrian medical practitioners. Her crystalline form flickered weakly as she watched the humans work. Our healing requires perfect harmony, precise frequencies, absolute sterility. That's exactly your problem, replied Emily, adjusting a bioresonance chamber. Perfect systems can't adapt. They shatter when something unexpected hits them. Marcus was working with their first volunteer patient, a young Zephyrian named Keljin, whose light had almost completely faded. Instead of the aggressive treatments his people had tried, Marcus was using a combination of human antiviral techniques and controlled exposure therapy. We're not fighting the pathogen, Marcus explained to the gathered Zephyrians. We're teaching Keljin's body to live with it. Humans have done this for thousands of years with vaccines, building immunity through controlled exposure. The process was terrifying to watch. Keljin's crystal matrix began to change, incorporating elements of the pathogen into his cellular structure. His pure crystalline form became clouded, imperfect, almost organic in places. To Zephyrian eyes, he was becoming corrupted. "You're destroying his purity," Vexai protested, his harmonic voice cracking with emotion. "We're saving his life," Jake replied firmly. "Purity is beautiful, but it's also fragile. Survival requires adaptation." Hours passed. Keljean's vital signs fluctuated wildly, his crystalline body fighting between acceptance and rejection. The Zephyrian observers watched in horror as their perfect being became something hybrid, something new. Then, slowly, the dark veins of plague began to glow. Not with the pure light of traditional Zephyrian crystal, but with a warm, complex illumination that seemed almost alive. Keljean's eyes opened, no longer the perfect sapphire blue of his species, but a swirling mixture of colors that shifted like aurora. I can feel it," Keljean whispered. "The infection. But it's not fighting me anymore. It's part of me." The young Zephyrian sat up, his hybrid form stabilizing. He was no longer purely crystalline, but he was alive and growing stronger. By the minute, Emily ran scans excitedly. The pathogen has integrated with his crystal matrix without destroying it. His immune system has learned to work with the infection instead of against it. He's not just immune now, he's evolved. "But he's no longer truly Zephyrian," Healer Zixara said sadly. Marcus placed a gentle hand on her crystalline shoulder. "No, he's something better. He's adapted. He's survived. And most importantly, he can help save the rest of your people." Vexai stared at Keljean for a long moment. The young hybrid glowed with an inner light. It was different from traditional Zephyrian illumination, but undeniably beautiful. "How many can you save?" "All of them," Marcus replied confidently. "But they'll all change. They'll become something new. Are your people ready for that?" The Chancellor looked around at his dying civilization, then back at the living proof that survival was possible. Change or extinction. When you put it that way, the choice is clear. The humans began preparing for the largest medical intervention in galactic history, ready to save a species by teaching them to embrace their imperfections. The Great Transformation. The grand healing complex of Zephyr Prime had never seen anything like it. Where once sterile chambers hummed with perfect harmony, now controlled chaos reigned. Human medical teams worked alongside desperate Zephyrian healers, turning the most advanced medical facility in the galaxy into something that looked more like a human field hospital. "Batch 17 is showing positive integration," Emily reported, monitoring a group of young Zephyrians undergoing the transformation process. "Rejection rates are down to 12%. Marcus nodded, exhausted but determined. They had been working for 6 days straight, processing hundreds of patients. The treatment was working, but each success came with a cost. The transformed Zephyrians were no longer the crystalline perfection their species had maintained for millennia. Chancellor Vexai arrived for his own treatment, his ancient form barely holding together. As the eldest and most traditional of his people, his transformation would be the most symbolic. If he could accept change, others would follow. "I have lived for 800 years believing that purity was strength," Vexai said as Marcus prepared the integration chamber. "My ancestors would consider what I am about to become an abomination." "Your ancestors never faced extinction," Jake replied, adjusting the bioresonance field. "Sometimes survival requires us to become something our past selves wouldn't recognize." A chancellor's transformation was particularly dramatic. His ancient crystalline structure had become rigid with age, making integration more difficult. As the pathogen merged with his matrix, his perfect geometric form began to flow and change. Faceted surfaces became curved, sharp angles softened, and his pure blue light became a swirling spectrum of colors. Watching through the observation windows, Other Zephyrians gasped as their leader emerged from the chamber. Vex High was now a hybrid being, his crystalline core wrapped in organic-looking structures that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. He was still recognizably Zephyrian, but he was also something entirely new. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. Vex High flexed his transformed limbs, marveling at sensations he had never experienced. Different, impure, alive. He paused, then added with something approaching wonder, "I can feel emotions more clearly. The rigid harmony that once defined my thoughts has become ... musical, complex." Word of the Chancellor's successful transformation spread rapidly. Soon, Zephyrians were arriving from across the planet, desperate for the treatment that would save them, but change them forever. Not all were ready for such change. A group of traditional Zephyrians, led by High Crystallographer Nixal, gathered outside the medical complex in protest. "You are corrupting our species," Nixal declared, her perfect crystalline form unmarked by plague, only because she had isolated herself in a sterile chamber. "We would rather die pure than live as mongrels." "Then die," Kaljin responded, approaching the protesters. The young hybrid had become a spokesperson for the transformed, his unique appearance drawing both fascination and revulsion. "But don't speak for those who choose life." The confrontation was interrupted by an alarm. Emily rushed from the medical bay, her face pale. "We have a problem. The plague is mutating. The original strain is fighting back against our integrated versions." Marcus felt his heart sink. In saving the Zephyrians, had they created an even worse threat? "It's not just mutating randomly," Emily continued. "It's learning from our successes and adapting. The pathogen is more intelligent than we thought." If summoned by their words, the medical sensors began detecting a new strain of the plague, one that seemed specifically designed to attack the hybrid Zephyrians. The cure had worked, but now they faced an enemy that was evolving to counter their success. "Time for round 2, Marcus said grimly, rolling up his sleeves. Evolution's answer. The new strain hit fast and hard. Within hours, several of the recently transformed Zephyrians began showing symptoms of a secondary infection. Their hybrid biology, which had successfully integrated the original pathogen, was now under attack from its evolved cousin. "It's targeting the integration points," Emily reported frantically, scanning the latest victims. "The pathogen's new form specifically attacks the bonds between crystalline and organic components. It's like it's trying to undo our work." Marcus studied the data with growing concern. This wasn't random mutation. The pathogen was displaying purposeful adaptation, almost as if it had consciousness behind its evolution. "We need to think differently about this," Marcus announced to the assembled team. "What if the pathogen isn't just a disease? What if it's intelligent?" Jake looked up from his console. "You mean like a collective organism?" "Exactly. The original strain was trying to create symbiosis. When we succeeded, the pathogen learned from that success and created a counter-strategy. It's not just evolving randomly, it's problem-solving." Chancellor Vex High, still adapting to his new hybrid form, joined the discussion. "If it is intelligent, then perhaps we should try to communicate with it." The suggestion was met with stunned silence. Healer Zix Ara, who had undergone transformation the previous day, spoke first. "Communicate with the thing that nearly destroyed us? We made peace with the original strain through integration," Vex High pointed out. "Perhaps we can make peace with this one through negotiation." It was the most human suggestion Marcus had ever heard from a Zephyrian. The transformation was changing. More than just their biology. It was changing how they thought. Working together, the human and hybrid Zephyrian teams developed a communication protocol. Using bioresonance chambers, they created a direct interface with infected tissue samples. hoping to establish contact with the pathogen's collective intelligence. The first response was immediate and hostile. The pathogen flooded their systems with aggressive signals that translated roughly as reject corruption, restore purity. It wants to undo the integration, Emily realized. The pathogen sees our hybrid cure as a corruption of its original design. Marcus leaned into the communication. Array, we're not corrupting anything. We're helping both species survive. The response was swift. Symbiosis failed. Hosts remained divided. Integration incomplete. Suddenly, the truth became clear. The pathogen hadn't been trying to kill the Zephyrians at all. It had been trying to create perfect integration, but the Zephyrians' rigid biology had made true symbiosis impossible. The deaths had been failures, not intentions. You wanted to merge completely, Marcus said into the communicator, but their crystalline structure couldn't adapt fast enough. Correct. Original design flawed. New design corrects error. Kelgin stepped forward, his hybrid form glowing with mixed light. What if there's a third option? What if we work together to create something better than either species alone? The pause was longer this time. When the pathogen responded, its tone had changed. Explain proposal. What followed was the most unprecedented negotiation in galactic history. Humans, transformed Zephyrians, and an intelligent pathogen worked together to design a new form of existence. Not the rigid perfection the Zephyrians had maintained, not the chaotic struggle humans were used to, and not the pure symbiosis the pathogen desired, but something that incorporated the best of all three. The final integration was voluntary for all parties. Zephyrians who chose the new evolution gained not just immunity to disease, but enhanced emotional depth, adaptive intelligence, and biological flexibility. The pathogen gained stable hosts and purposeful existence. Humans gained new allies, and proof that even the most impossible problems could be solved through cooperation. Years later, the Terran-Zephyrian alliance would become the foundation of a new galactic civilization. The species that had once dismissed humans as primitive chaos found that sometimes chaos was exactly what perfect order needed to survive. As Marcus stood on the observation deck of the now thriving Zephyr Prime, watching hybrid children play in gardens that sang with both crystalline harmony and organic life, he smiled. The cure hadn't just saved a species. It had created something entirely new, something that could only exist because different forms of life had chosen to trust each other. Humanity had given the Zephyrians a second chance, but in return, the Zephyrians had given humanity something equally valuable, proof that the universe was big enough for every kind of intelligence to find its place.